Let's look a little bit closer at the different levels and types of implementation teams in this example that we have with UMTSS. Starting at the state level, you can see that we have a couple different teams. At the top, we have our state leadership team. This team is made up of directors of various departments, coordinators, specialist levels that do a lot of the planning and the vision around MTSS. This team meets every 2 months for a couple hours, and we've had a lot of activities around alignment and collaboration across departments to ensure that the efforts of MTSS are found in other initiatives beyond just the project UMTSS. Another example is we have focused in UMTSS a lot on coaching, both instructional and systems coaching. And we've made an effort to work with, through the state leadership team, with other departments that are also doing coaching and ensuring that our models are aligned and that the terminology and the practices that we have are aligned so that the message the LEAs are receiving is a unified message. We also talk a lot in that state leadership team about the efforts of UMTSS, the project, and the outcomes of that, and how that work can inform other initiatives at the state office. The state implementation team then does a lot of the nuts and bolts planning and carrying out of that vision of MTSS for the state. The implementation team meets twice a month formally, 3-hour meetings each time. And in those meetings, we have reporting out of subcommittees that do a lot of work around the vision of MTSS. We also have a meeting in which we report out on the supports, the coaching supports we're providing to LEAs and problem solve around how we can best support them in their implementation efforts. Between those meetings, there's of course day-to-day work and collaboration within our team and beyond our team to aid in the implementation efforts. That team is there largely to support the districts. The implementation team communicates regularly with the leadership team, but a lot of our effort is focused on how we can best support, in this case it's called the district, but the LEA, the district or the charter. We provide opportunities for meetings, we provide training, and most important, we provide coaching. Our LEA coaches, as you can see on the left side there, work regularly with our district teams to help them in the planning and implementation of their MTSS model within their LEA. So looking more closely at that district level, some LEAs that we work with have both a district leadership team and a district implementation team. Similar to the state level, they have slightly different functions. The leadership team setting the vision and allocating resources and working on policy, and the implementation team doing the nuts and bolts planning and carrying out and evaluating and coaching of that vision. In some LEAs, however, these teams are actually combined due to the LEA being smaller, certainly with our charters and in some of our smaller districts. The leadership team and the implementation team are often one and the same. If that's the case, they still need to meet both functions, both setting vision, looking at policy, allocating resources, but also doing the day-to-day implementation of the innovation. That implementation team, in turn, provides support to the building level. Implementation science talks about both a building leadership team and a building implementation team. We found that often these are one and the same within schools within Utah. So this team, again, meets those functions of setting the vision, planning, carrying out, evaluating, providing coaching support to the teachers, to the PLCs, so that they can improve their practices for the benefit of all students. And all of these teams at the state level, at the district level, at the building level, are there ultimately to support those individuals on the front lines, the teachers, the related service providers, counselors, others that are there working directly with the students for the benefit of all students within the system. So I'd like to talk just briefly about what makes an effective team meeting. Once we have a good implementation team established, we want to make sure that when we come together, we're having effective meetings. A lot of this is pulled from the team-initiated problem-solving work out of the University of Oregon. And the next slide will give you a reference to that. But there are some key critical components that happen in effective team meetings that can be broken out into 4 categories, as you see here. Predictability. There are established roles and responsibilities of team members. The meeting starts and ends on time. And data are reviewed throughout the meeting and within the first 5 minutes. Data is a priority as the team problem solves around how they can improve the efforts within the system. There also needs to be participation. It's not just identifying the key critical members of that team, but we should have at least 75% of those members present and fully engaged. Key decision makers are present. At that building level, the administrator should be there. Similar to what we talked about with regards to having a superintendent make decisions about funding and policy, the administrator, the principal, needs to be there to answer some of the questions that only he or she can answer. There also should be accountability. The team should monitor progress formally with taking minutes and having those minutes publicly displayed within that meeting so everybody can see what's recorded and everybody is aware of their individual responsibilities. The team should also review previous action items, what was identified in the previous meeting, and that will allow the team to follow up on the results of that, and there's that accountability for those individuals to make sure that they've carried out the identified actions. As we identify new actions within that meeting, those should be very explicitly identified. So who will do what by when? And there should also be a plan for evaluating both the fidelity of implementation and the outcomes of the identified action items. We found as we've supported teams within UMTSS that a lot of times teams do well with having team members identified, starting and ending on time, having notes, but the things that teams struggle most with are reviewing previous action items and following up, and that one that I just mentioned under accountability, planning for the evaluation of fidelity and outcomes. We may come up with great solutions, but we don't plan for how we're going to evaluate the implementation fidelity and the outcomes of that. And then the 4th major category that's needed is communication. All the team members need to have access to the minutes soon after the end of the meeting so that they can go back and review the action items that were identified. And there also needs to be established norms and agreements within that team of how the meetings will run and how information is shared out and responsibilities are followed up on. I made reference to the team-initiated problem-solving model that a lot of this work is pulled from around the effectiveness of team meetings. This is a model that they use frequently, similar to a problem-solving model. So it's identifying the problem with precision, identifying a goal for change. What are we going to do to get to that goal? Let's identify a solution and create an implementation plan with contextual fit, which is really critical. We can't assume that a plan will fit in all systems. What will be usable for the individuals that will be implementing it? We need to then implement that solution with high integrity and of course evaluate the fidelity or the integrity of that implementation. And then we monitor the impact of the solution and compare that against the goal that we had established. And then ultimately we make summative evaluative decisions. Did it work? Did we carry the plan out as intended? And perhaps we need to revisit the problem and do a deeper drill down of identifying what the root cause is of that problem. At every stage of this, we have to make sure that we're collecting and using data to inform our decisions. So I encourage you to look more closely at the team-initiated problem-solving work. It's available on the pbis.org website if you'd like to know more about it. So some closing discussion here. Consider most implementation teams in your setting, perhaps one that you're on, within a school or within your district, or implementation teams that you've seen in the past. What have been the consistent strengths of those teams? I talked about some of those critical features that should happen within teams in both the selection and the awareness, the training, the effectiveness of those meetings. What are some of the strengths of those teams? And then please consider and share what are some areas where those teams can improve. Are easily identified things that you could implement tomorrow with the team that you're on? Are there real barriers that have to be addressed to help that team to be more effective? So go ahead and take some time and share your thoughts on those two questions if you would.